He didn't raise his voice. He didn't try to convince her with grand speeches or dramatic gestures. Ethan said it like a truth he had carried for months, when he finally allowed to surface, gentle, steady, undeniable. Because you've carried a mountain alone for too long, he said softly. And I have the means to make it easier. For a long moment, Mira said nothing. She sat there at the small dining table, the table Ethan had helped repair when one of its legs broke, with bills spread out like pieces of a life she'd been barely holding together. The overhead bulb flickered faintly, casting tired shadows across her face. Shadows made by long nights, endless shifts, and a kind of loneliness that had become second nature. She closed her eyes and pressed her fingers against her forehead. Ethan, she whispered, you can't just step in and fix everything. I'm not trying to fix everything, he replied. Just the things you shouldn't have to carry alone. Her breath trembled. Not because his words were too much, but because they were too kind. He pulled out the chair across from her and sat down slowly, leaving enough space for her to breathe, for her to not feel overwhelmed by his presence. You were supposed to fix my sink, she said quietly after a moment, a tiny, wavering attempt at humor. He smiled. Yeah, well. Turns out the sink wasn't the only thing that needed support. Mira opened her eyes and looked at him. Really looked at the steady way he held her gaze. The quiet strength in his expression. The man who had walked into her life with a toolbox and somehow started repairing everything she didn't know was breaking. You've already done so much, she said. You repaired the house. You got me the job at the store. You helped Lila with her homework when I couldn't be home. You even, she stopped, her voice caught on something fragile. You even sat with her at her school's parent night. Someone needed to be there, he said simply, that someone wasn't supposed to be you. Maybe not. But I wanted it to be. Myra's jaw trembled. She pushed the bills away abruptly, as though the sight of them hurt. You don't understand, she said. If I accept too much help, it feels like I'm failing. Like I'm not enough for my own daughter. Ethan reached forward slowly, giving her time to pull away if she wanted. She didn't. You've been enough, he said. More than enough. You've done the work of 2 parents and 3 jobs. You kept a roof over her head. You taught her to be brave. You gave her love even when you were exhausted. Mira, there is nothing about you that is failing. Her lips parted, not in disbelief, but in the shock of finally hearing what she'd needed for years. And if I step in, he added quietly, it's not to replace you. It's to stand beside you. Mira swallowed. Her eyes shimmered, but she refused to let the tears fall. She had spent years convincing herself she didn't have the luxury of breaking down, that tears were a weakness she couldn't afford. Ethan, why, she asked. Why go this far for us? He held her gaze without wavering. Because people helped me once, he said. When I didn't deserve it. When I didn't know how to ask. And because when I look at you and Lila, he paused, searching for the right words. I see something worth protecting. Her breath hitched, and maybe, he added softly, I like being around you both more than I should. The silence that followed wasn't uncomfortable. It was full of things unspoken, full of soft realizations, full of the fragile bloom of something that had been growing slowly, quietly, beautifully. Mira looked down at her hands, at the calluses from long hours and hard work. Ethan followed her gaze, then gently turned her hands over, his thumbs brushing along her knuckles. You don't have to be strong all the time, he murmured. I won't let things fall apart for you anymore. Her eyes finally lifted. Say that again. I won't let things fall apart for you. The tears she'd been holding back spilled over. He didn't move closer. He didn't pull her into an embrace, he just stayed there, holding her hands, letting her feel safe enough to cry. For the first time in years, she let herself. It wasn't loud, it wasn't dramatic, it was a soft, trembling release, a quiet surrender after years of holding everything inside. When she finally steadied, Ethan squeezed her hands gently. Let me help you, he said. Not out of pity. Out of choice. Mira breathed in deeply, then, with a tiny nod that held the weight of trust, she whispered, "Oh, okay." It was the smallest word she had ever spoken, and the most important one, not because it was the moment she finally stopped climbing the mountain alone, and the moment Ethan knew he would do everything in his power to make sure she never had to again.